Hey, welcome to Zach's Wrestling Action Review. For the first episode, I want to talk about WCW because I grew up watching a lot of WCW. Since I stopped watching around 98 or 99, I only had vague memories. I've thought about the end of WCW a lot since then. From time to time, I'd think about one storyline in specific. I always wondered exactly what happened because I didn't see very much of it. I just remember that they were always shown hanging around backstage. They were crazy, but I always thought it was kinda cool to see this young crazy group sitting around in random spots in the arena. I know the end of WCW wasn't that great, but I think this one deserves a second look. Sure, it's not the greatest thing ever, and some of it was stupid, but after checking it out, I realized that some of it was actually kinda cool. I want to thank you for checking out this video, and I hope you enjoy. Today I'm going to tell you the story about when David met Daphne. Oh, and the word of the day is Crowbar. It all started back when Kimberly Page invited David Flair up to her hotel room, but Ric showed up instead. Ric was in the middle of a feud with Kimberly's husband, Diamond Dallas Page. The Filthy Animals jumped David Flair, so Ric called them out. The Filthy Animals jumped Ric and took all of his stuff, his jacket, his ring, and watch. Ric showed up to Halloween Havoc with a crowbar and got some revenge against the Filthy Animals. He was able to get his watch back and even kiss Tori. Later in the night, Diamond Dallas Page and Ric Flair were in a strap match. Page won the match, but afterwards he kept attacking Ric. David came down to the ring to help his dad. He tried to give him a crowbar, but Kimberly hit him and gave the crowbar to Page. Page hit Flair in the groin with it. David tried to get involved, but got a couple diamond cutters. After Page left the ring, the EMTs tended to Ric. Something hilarious, the referee Charles Robinson was crying during this. It's worth noting that this is the beginning of David Flair losing his mind. On the way to the ambulance, the Filthy Animals attacked. David tried to help his dad, but was outnumbered. They threw Ric in the back of the ambulance before taking off in it. The next night on Nitro, the Filthy Animals showed a video of what they did with Ric. They drove the ambulance out in the middle of nowhere. They dragged him out into a field and left him there for dead. David Flair showed up and attacked Eddie Guerrero with a crowbar during Eddie's match against Saturn. During this, David looked completely out of his mind. Later in the night, David had a match against Diamond Dallas Page in a world title tournament. He showed up wearing his father's robe. Page started mocking David, even kissing him, but when David took off the robe, he revealed that he had a crowbar behind his back. Not caring about the match, David assaulted Page with the crowbar, while a horrified Kimberly watched helplessly. David was on his way out of the arena after attacking the Filthy Animals when he was hit by a car. Kimberly called out David, saying that she was tired of running from him. On his way out to the ring, David was attacked by Bam Bam Bigelow. David got the better of him with his crowbar and then chased Kimberly through the parking lot. In When they got to the parking lot, Kimberly got in her car and David got on top of it and smashed the windshield with his crowbar. He hit it a few more times before Creative Control showed up and he took off.
Now we bring back a segment that we had about a year ago. We want to see your Nitro Party takes. And our first one comes from a fan from Peoria, Illinois.
Hi, I'm Daffney Unger, and I'm from Peoria, Illinois, and I love all the superstars of the WCW. And it's always been my dream to host a Nitro Party. And I just want to say that I think David Flair is totally cool.
As part of a Lethal Lottery tag team tournament, David was paired with Lex Luger for a match against Sting and Diamond Dallas Page. Before the match, David got a package in his locker room. Lex Luger showed up to talk strategy with David, but David was obsessed with the headless teddy bear that he had. When they got out to the ring, David refused to start the match until Lex promised to watch his teddy bear for him. Eventually, Lex threw the teddy bear out into the crowd, and David chased after it. At this point, David Flair has completely lost his mind. He carries around a crowbar and a teddy bear and looks like he hasn't slept in weeks. And all of this is a result of seeing his dad be beaten up by DDP and the Filthy Animals.
Got that gold-plated crowbar that he got as some sort of a gift. I don't know where he got it from. He's a stalker, this guy. Someone sent it to him special delivery backstage here in D.C. And we've still got the crowbar suspended on a pole. Yeah, but he brought his own crowbar. That's pretty smart. Maybe he's not quite as nuts as we think he is. Maybe not. Don't worry about having to fight to get the crowbar. Just bring your own in and use it. Are we talking like crazy like a fox? Maybe so. Look at the eyes. Oh, he is gone. He hasn't been to bed for months. The wheels turning and the hamster's dead. Is that the girl from Peoria? I think Wayne's got it. You mean the girl that sent in that Nitro tape? That was our winner of our Nitro party? Yeah, the one that had the David Flair shrine in her bedroom. Never forget a pretty face. That kind of looks like her. If that is in fact the girl that sent us the Nitro tape, she has apparently saved the life of David Flair. Well, Page was set to do to David what he did to Ric Flair and put him out of the sport.
At the next Nitro, Daphne was backstage and ran into the Misfits. Jerry only tried to talk shit to her, but she bit his nose and kicked him in the balls.
She came in to help out David Flair, and we wondered who she was. But we realized she was the lady that sent in the Nitro party tape, who was, Daffney Unger of Peoria, Illinois. Well, look at these two walking together. This looks like the top of a wedding cake from hell.
Hero! You put your hands on the woman I love? Come down here so I can whip your ass!
I don't think aspirin will work.
Bobby Heenan made a joke about how Daphne and David were like natural-born killers. This is the first of a few times that the movie will be referenced in comparison to them. Continuing with the natural-born killer vibe, David and Daphne were shown going on a joyride. They were going through the drive-thru but received the wrong order. David got out and attacked the employee through the window. David kept yelling about how he wanted Salisbury steak, while Daphne just stood there screaming and laughing. After they left, they went to a gas station where they met an angry attendant who went by the name of Crowbar. After Daphne said that she liked his name, the three of them stood there laughing at each other like fucking idiots. Vampiro and the Misfits showed up and ganged up on David. They held Daphne back while they beat on David, until Crowbar ran them off. The Lethal Lottery Tag Tournament continued. David was scheduled to team with the Maestro. During the Maestro's entrance, Crowbar made his debut. Crowbar replaced Maestro as David's partner for the match. Just as Vampiro was about to win the match for his team, Crowbar clobbered him with the pipe and put David over top of him. This was an ongoing thing. David never won a match on his own. Someone would always interfere, allowing David to get the win. After they beat up 3 count during their dance routine, Daphne and David rolled around on the mat kissing each other until standards and practices came in with Miss Hancock. They told David and Crowbar that their behavior would no longer be tolerated on their television show. Commissioner Terry Funk told the NWO that he would screw them over in their match against David and Crowbar in the finals of the tag team title tournament. Nash threatened to go after Arn Anderson's crazy-ass godson, David Flair. The rest of the night, the NWO, as well as Terry Funk and Arn Anderson, ran around the arena looking for David. Eventually, they all met in the ring for the final match of the tag team tournament. Kevin Nash decided to go at it alone, since he didn't consider them much of a challenge. As Nash was getting ready to hit the jackknife, Arn Anderson hit him with a crowbar, which allowed David and Crowbar to win the match and the tag team titles. After the match, David hit Arn with a crowbar. Then the NWO abducted Arn to close out the show. On Thunder, we got to see the NWO torturing Arn. David, Daphne, and Crowbar were watching on a monitor somewhere backstage. Daphne and Crowbar were laughing their asses off, but David seemed genuinely upset. Arn Anderson thinks that David Flair is still a good kid, but he's just got some bad influences around him. This becomes an ongoing thing as well. Terry Funk came to the ring after Jeff Jarrett's match. He distracted Jeff while David came up behind him and choked him with the crowbar. They called out the NWO and offered to make a trade, Jarrett for Anderson. After the NWO came out and agreed to the trade, Bret Hart and Terry Funk made a hardcore match for later in the evening. I'm not sure why, but Arn Anderson's pants were ripped. During the match, Bret Hart knocked out the referee on purpose. Backstage, Arn Anderson was shown putting on a referee shirt before David came in and took it from him. David put on the shirt and locked Arn in the room. He headed out to the ring but was cut off by Nash. They threw him in the ring and beat up him and Crowbar. Kevin Nash dragged Terry Funk up to the stage and closed out the show by giving him a jackknife through the stage.
You know, each week I see you go out with this David Flair and Crowbar. I mean, are you kidding me? It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, or you got Buff Bag on me. What are you going to do? Buff is the stuff, or David Skinny the Feud Flair? I mean, come on. Let's be honest, okay? The main question is, I want to know, how big is your waist?
I think the question was, how many inches has your arm?
I knew you were a player. I knew you were a player. So what's the deal? Are you going to go out with me or what? Me and you.
Talking to Bob Bagwell. I saw that tape. Come on, Steve.
It isn't funny. It isn't funny.
Oh, Bagwell. Come on,
It
Steve.
isn't funny. I saw it.
Oh, you know I only like blondes. Come on. I only have eyes for you.
I saw it. I saw it.
Nothing. It was nothing.
The Nitro Girls were in the ring doing one of their dance routines when David Flair interrupted. He tried to dance with her, but they weren't interested. Now, another thing to point out is at this point, David Flair is also noted as being a bit of a ladies' man like his dad. After they left, Daphne came in the ring carrying the crowbar. She threatened him with it, but David begged at her feet and she forgave him. During a six-man tag match, Chris Candido accidentally knocked Paisley off the ring apron, but David Flair was at ringside and caught her. David decided he was going to dance for Paisley, who seemed mildly amused by it. However, Daphne was not. She decided to use the crowbar to get his attention. At Slamboree, Ric Flair was in a match against Shane Douglas. Douglas was a part of Vince Russo's New Blood stable. During the match, the Sting imposter came down to ringside. Ric Flair was about to hit the Sting imposter when Vince Russo came out. While Flair had his attention on Russo, the Sting imposter hit him in the head with a Statue of Liberty replica. Vince and David beat up on Flair for a little bit until Nash came out. Nash was just about to hit the jackknife powerbomb on Russo when Daphne hit him with a low blow. At this point, Vince Russo became like a father figure to David. Footage was shown of Vince Russo taking David, Daphne, and Crowbar on a trip around New York City. Vince promised to show the boys some naked women, and told Daphne to go play in the street. They replayed some footage of Vince, David, and Rick arguing in the ring. Rick told David to come home. David said his problem with Rick was that Rick was never there for him growing up, and said that Vince Russo was more of a father to him. We got to see a little more of the New York trip. Daphne flipped out when she saw a Statue of Liberty in front of the store because she thought it was the real one. David tried to explain that the little Statue of Liberty in his hand was the real one. Crowbar said that the only time he's ever seen a Statue of Liberty, it was surrounded by water. And then, because why not, Vince Russo said that the Statue of Liberty gets moved around daily, that everybody gets a piece of it. Vince and David were in the ring talking about Rick when Arn came out and interrupted them. So they set up a match between David and Arn later in the night. Crowbar and Daphne got involved, and they busted a Statue of Liberty replica over his head. Then we were shown the last of the New York footage.
David, man, we're going right down the road. Let's go. Forget this romantic bumble jumble. Let's go, man. I want to bring you there. Come on, Daphne, let's go. I want to marry her. What? Are you sure? It's your life, bro. Take it. Daphne, honey. Until I become a true New Yorker, I'm not going to be able to afford one of these. I can't wait any longer. Will you marry me?
Cruiserweight champion Chris Candido made an open challenge to any couple on the roster to face him and Tammy for the Cruiserweight title. Daphne and Crowbar accepted and ended up winning the match, but neither one wanted to share the belt. Ric Flair came out and laid into Crowbar. Then a video was shown on the big screen up by the ramp. Vince, David, and Daphne showed up at the Flair household. Vince and David talked about how David had always been mistreated. They went to Ric Flair's room and jumped on his bed a little bit. Then they went in his closet and put on his robe. Ric's wife and their 2 kids came home. This was one of the first times that Ashley Flair, also known as Charlotte, was on screen. Ric stood out in the ring while this video was being played. Once it was over, he called out David. David came out and Ric made a challenge for Great American Bash, that if Ric lost the match, he'd retire. At the Great American Bash, Ric Flair won his match against David. After the match was over, he got a hold of Russo and gave him several chops. The next night, Ric Flair had a match against Vince Russo and David. The stipulations were that if Ric won the match, he would get Russo's power in WCW. David would have to come home, and he would get to shave Russo's head. Ric also stated that he wanted to shave Vince's ass. If Russo and David won, then Ric would have to retire forever. While Ric had David in the figure 4, Vince hit him in the ribs with a baseball bat. Vince got on the microphone and taunted Ric's wife and kids that were at ringside. He called Ric's wife into the ring and harassed her. Ric's oldest daughter threw in the towel for her dad to end the match, while Vince and David shaved Ric's hair. They played some security cam footage that showed David backstage talking to Miss Hancock. After Daphne called out Miss Hancock, they got into a catfight in the ring. David showed up and started yelling at Daphne. Crowbar got involved to try to calm things down, but David hit him. Then David pulled out a pair of clippers and started shaving Crowbar's head. David walked around backstage looking for Daphne so he could apologize to her, but when he did, she smacked him. Then they showed up in front of the interview set.
I'm so sorry for the things I've been doing. I'm so sorry. Please.
Oh, can we get you to a room?
I'm so glad we're back together. I've missed you. I'm sorry. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll get those later. Come on, let's go. Come on. But just, go back to the hotel room, get some champagne, and I'll be there in a few minutes. I just left something. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Just get everything ready, okay? I'll be there. I love you too. Honey, what is wrong with you?
I saw you on Monday night with Peacock.
That was 2 weeks ago. That wasn't me.
No, I saw you on the monitor.
That was Jeff Jarrett.
Nuh-uh, it was you.
That was Major Staff.
No,
That wasn't me.
I saw it was you.
I think it was that new production guy. It wasn't me, honey. Come on.
I know it was you. I saw.
It wasn't me. I promise. You're the only girl I love. Hi, why'd you think it was me and Miss Hancock? That's crazy.
Well, I saw on the monitor. I saw Miss Hancock and some blonde.
I forgot something. I'll be right back, John. I'll be right back.
Okay, hurry up.
It was Miss Hancock. We've got the videotape. Mind your own business. You're like a nosy neighbor peeking over the hood.
Who played that part to me and Miss Hancock? To you guys? Huh? You think it's funny, huh? You think it's funny, huh? Huh?
Wait a minute.
How are you doing your job, huh? I'll show you doing your job. That's funny. Think about that next time.
That poor Woody Kears. Looks like a young Gene Okerlund. What a low-life, no-good,
Sorry.
two-timing,
I'm sorry, I left my watch.
blindball. He is. Are you talking about Okerlund?
I love you so much.
David's running a block on that monitor for Daphne.
You need so much. Why do you want to do
Yes,
this?
yes, because what you look in the monitor.
I don't want to marry you.
Wedding gown challenge in 6 days at Bash at the Beach. And David, putting his eyes over there, get an eyeful of Hancock. Or a handful of... hang on.
Hey, look at her. She's not, Daphne not even looking.
Near.
She believes it. She believes it's twice.
Wherever you are. You know that song? I love singing that to you. You mean so much to me.
Better than now.
God, you know how much I love you. My stomach hurts.
Are you okay?
Go give me some Pepto-Bismol real fast. Go.
Pains. Is he pregnant?
No, he's got...
No way!
He's got the hair clippers out.
That's the big ones. You can shave a lamb with those.
David tried to save Miss Hancock, but Daphne came out with the Pepto-Bismol and hit David in the balls. She dumped the Pepto-Bismol on his head and yelled at him until Miss Hancock got up, and then her and Daphne got into a fight. Crowbar grabbed a hold of Miss Hancock, but that was just a distraction so that David could hit him with a chair. After that, David and Miss Hancock cut some of Daphne's hair with a pair of clippers. David put the hair and the clippers in Crowbar's hands to frame him. Crowbar searched around backstage for David. When he found him, he was in a room with Miss Hancock. The two got into a fight and carried it all the way out to the ring where they had an impromptu match. After Crowbar won the match, he started choking David with a pipe.
I'm going to ask you two simple questions, and if you do not answer me with the truth, I'm going to wind up and your head's going to be out there in the 12th row. Tell me, who shaved her head? Who was it? Who was it? I'm sorry. She made me do it. Number two, are you or are you not messing around on Daphne? I'm sorry, I did it. I did it. Now that that's all squared away, there really is nothing keeping you from putting your head out in the 3rd row. Batters up, baby.
David Flair hung Miss Hancock out to dry on this.
Daphne!
He blamed her for it.
I only wanted you to hear the truth.
Miss Hancock was backstage with a trainer. When the trainer put his hand on her leg, David Flair came into the room and beat him up. Then David pulled out his clippers and shaved the guy's head. At Bash at the Beach, Daphne and Miss Hancock had a wedding gown match. David Flair came out all dressed up and left his jacket and his pair of clippers at the announce table. At one point in the match, David and Crowbar got in the ring and started beating each other up. David and the ref had their pants ripped off, and Crowbar didn't want to be left out, so he took his off. After that, Miss Hancock got in the ring and decided to strip. Because she removed her own clothes, she lost the match. But then, a big cake fight broke out.
Ridiculous. Daphne was great. Daphne was really great.
Hey, let's go kick their butt. Ah!
Are you okay?
Why wouldn't I be okay?
Well, I just figured with this whole David and Miss Hancock thing, you'd be a little bit upset, and I really want you to know that if you're upset, I'm here for you.
No, David's just chump. I'm so totally over David.
Over him? Really?
Yeah, and plus, I got candy from my secret admirer. He can send me all this stuff. I think he really likes me, you know? You know what I'm saying?
I'll pass on a candy after.
Okay.
Crowbar was having a match when Daphne's secret admirer came out. Oddly enough, he looked just like Crowbar. If you've seen this match or have footage of it, let me know. I'd love to see it. Daphne and her secret admirer Ozzie showed up and sat at ringside during the show. During a match between Reno and Mike Awesome, Reno got into an altercation with Ozzie at ringside. After Reno lost his match, he got into it with Ozzie again. He pulled him over the guardrail while Daphne screamed and threw popcorn at him. David arrived at the arena in a limo for his wedding to Miss Hancock, also known as Stacy Keibler. When he got out, he was greeted by Crowbar, Daphne, and Ozzie. Crowbar and David shook hands, and Crowbar wished him luck on his big day. David told Daphne that he was looking for his dad, but they hadn't seen him. Now this is pretty much the end of David Flair's involvement with Daphne and Crowbar.
Hey, Crowbar, what's wrong?
Jimmy, just one of those days. You seen Daphne around here anywhere?
You know what? I heard that Daphne and Ozzie are on their way to Australia right now.
Going to Australia?
That's what I heard.
With Ozzie?
With Ozzie. Cheer up, man.
Man, you just haven't been yourself lately. What's wrong?
It's this thing with Daphne, man. Mess me all up here. I can't do anything right in that ring anymore. Might as well just quit.
So you're saying you got chick problems? Well, that's great, because I'm the love doctor, and I can take care of your chick problems. I tell you what, come with me. Come on, we need to go have a talk, all right? And you need to...
Daphne would make a return and manage Crowbar while he was the hardcore champion. Crowbar also started using a ladies' man gimmick. This was just a little while before WCW was bought out by WWE, and they were released. Well, that brings us to the end of the story. Thanks for watching.